So I recently hit 100 hours in Guilty Gear Strive. Now, for many that might not be very impressive, for others that might be ridiculous. But for me, other than Street Fighter V, I haven't really put 100 hours into a game in like a good 10 years or something like that. It's been incredibly hard for me to play games that I find enjoyable, that I find fun, that keep my attention, because there's so many games coming out, and plus I have a kid, I have a business I'm trying to work on, I have a wife that I'm trying to, make sure that I fulfill duties with her as well. I've got a lot of things going on, and even though I play games a decent bit, playing 100 hours of a game, pretty rare. Now with fighting games, I think this is pretty common. You have to at least get 100 hours to be competitively viable. Way more than that, honestly, but 100 hours is not anything major. That said, I want to talk about my experience with playing Guilty Gear Strive. It is another fighting game, so it's very much relevant to the FGC, to fighting games, to fighting game philosophy. And as such, I think we should talk about that. Hello and welcome to FGC Philosophy. My name is a philosopher, and this is where we talk about topics that I think are important that are going to help us all level up inside and outside the virtual arena. Today's topic is, yes, Guilty Gear Strive and my 100 hours, and I'm going to talk about a few various topics related to the game specifically, kind of like my review, my pseudo-review of 100 hours of the game, but also my experiences and what I've learned in fighting games as a whole, and also just in terms of personal development or development in some sense. Not necessarily like motivation or anything like that, but just tools to help me think about things, right? I think I've done a poor job of really articulating my ideas in terms of how they're productive, and I feel like I use the term personal development, or a lot of people use that term when talking about my content, and I guess, yeah, it does fall into that because it helps you develop as a person. But it's not just the touchy-feely stuff, or I hope it's not. I hope it doesn't come off that way. I hope it's practical, things that we can utilize as mental tools and take those things and do better. And some of them are specific to fighting games, and some of them aren't. So I want to talk about all of that, all of my experience with this game. The first thing is, let me just talk about how I feel about Guilty Gear Strive. I absolutely love the game. I think that playing this game has helped me come to terms with some important things that I'll hit on a little bit later on. But in terms of the game specifically, I love the artwork. The music is good. I recently did turn off the music and started playing my own music, mainly because of stream purposes, because I want a variety of music. I like my own genre. And as much as I do like Guilty Gear Strive's music sometimes, I can't really curate it. I can pick a song and I can keep changing it, but I really don't care. I really don't care to do that in between running a match, especially if I ever plan on doing a tournament. I'd rather just have my own music and I can change it if I don't like it on the fly with the touch of a button, regardless of if I'm in a match or not. Usually it's going to be between a round at the very least, but nonetheless, it's just easier for me. You know what I mean? Plus, with so many songs, and I understand that Guilty Gear and Daisuke own this, but I'm just afraid of copyright issues down the line, so I'd rather just play music that I know is copyright free rather than running into that issue if I get bigger when I get bigger down the line. But that said, the music is nice. There's a large variety of it that you can unlock as you play the game. So if you like older Guilty Gear music, there's a ridiculous amount of older Guilty Gear music in the game, and it seems like they're adding some music from the Korean game. I don't know anything about that. I just saw it on Twitter. Figured I'd share that. In terms of the gameplay, I absolutely love the gameplay. So just so you know where I'm at skill-wise, I did hit VIP or Celestial Floor, whatever that is. That's basically the highest rank that you can get as of right now. You essentially just level up higher and higher as you go. So I don't think I'm anywhere near the top of the ladder, but I have earned at least temporarily, the highest status that you can get in the game. I have to actually earn it again. I'm in my series to get it. I just haven't played the game as much as I'd like to online. I've played when I say that, I mean that I'm usually playing online with people specifically. I'm doing first to 5s, first to 10s, first to 20s. I'm playing long sets with people because that's just legitimately what I enjoy the most. I haven't touched the storyline or the arcade mode. I'm mainly in the training room trying out stuff and practicing and learning new skills, honing old skills, or I'm just playing sets with friends, and there's enough people that I know to when I get on, I can ask somebody for a set. Or they're already on, so I hop on because I'm like, yeah, now's my time to play Strive, let me go ahead and hit them up. Or, I can play the Celestial Floor, the ranked system. I actually enjoy playing the ranked system in this game not just for getting that rank, but just because it's more consistent in who I play. I can go to lower floors, I can go to floor 10 and play level 10 players, and it's a little less consistent and it's like more of a grab bag. But when you get into a celestial floor, they at least know their fundamentals to some degree. They might have a vastly different play style, and there's a decent character pool depending on what region you're playing in. So there's a lot of variety of how I can play online, and the connection is good enough and the load times are fast enough to where it's just efficient. It's really efficient to play that game. I never really thought about this because I heard people complain about it, and I've never been the kind of person that's going to complain about load times. It is what it is. I've never been the kind of person to complain about like netcode and connections to other people in games, just because I accept it for what it is. You know, if I don't like it enough, I just don't play it. I don't keep playing it and complaining about it because that seems ridiculous to me. So I never really let that bother me. You know, Street Fighter, I never really let it bother me, except for every now and then you get a really laggy match where you definitively lose a match. But other than that, you just take it for what it is, and once you know you're in a laggy match, you try to just keep yourself calm and get to the match and you quit when you're done. But there's no reason to take it personal or any of that. However, I think it's important to appreciate when someone does something better. And Guilty Gear Strive definitely does it better. Their connection is good, so you have this AAA game with good netcode. Usually it's like indie game with AAA netcode and AAA company with indie netcode. I don't understand. Like, I say indie and I don't mean that in a derogatory term. I just mean like they got some Walmart connections for some of these games that are AAA. It's kind of ridiculous. So as much as I love Street Fighter V, I find myself just enjoying the quality of netcode on Strive so much better. So with all that said, I've been able to get a lot more matches in, a lot more quality matches in faster. And there's something to that. And the gameplay is rich enough for me to be able to do really fun stuff. I do think there is some sort of simplification to this game, but I don't think it's a simple game. I just think it's quicker to pick up. But then there's so much more to the game. The Roman cancel system alone allows for a large pool of variety of one-of-a-kind moments, because you have this tool that can be used in an infinite number of ways. Like, there's no one way to use these tools. And they're contextual, so the Roman cancel system, it changes depending on the situation. So on whiff, on block, on hit, when you're blocking, there's so much to the interaction of this one system that makes the depth just ridiculous. Because what's going to happen is people are going to start finding creative one-of-a-kind ways of using these tools, and then people are going to figure that out and create counters to that. And it's just going to get deeper and deeper and deeper, especially since they're probably going to make the game a little bit more difficult or more complex as the life cycle goes on. They may not, but looking at their track record, they've done it. Let's not even look at Guilty Gear. Let's look at Dragon Ball, right? If you've never played the Dragon Ball FighterZ game, just so you know, they did add some new things to the game as it got older. You know, they added new assists so that you can kind of customize your assist a little bit more. So every team, even if you had the same characters, had the potential to be different. You know, they changed and tweaked characters. They added new characters. They added, you know, some other features to the game that I can't even remember, let alone Guilty Gear. You know, let's look at Guilty Gear Xrd, or Zerd, however you want to pronounce it. And then Revelator, and Revelator 2, and then, you know, all the stuff that came out. You know, they changed the game. So Strive right now might be Strive 1.0, but they're going to change it and make it more robust. I'm sure. I'm fairly confident of that. That's just the life cycle of most fighting games nowadays. They can package it all as one game and put it under DLC and season passes, or they might just do the whole Street Fighter Guilty Gear thing where they have a Guilty Gear blah XZZ, and then they just keep adding on to it. So either way, that's going to happen. So the people complaining about it being too basic right now, they're kind of silly if they already are Guilty Gear old heads. I'm not a Guilty Gear old head, and I know that about Guilty Gear. So whatever, I guess take that with whatever you want to do with that. If you're one of the people that are salty, I don't get you. You know, like the people who are salty and complaining about it and saying how bad it is, it's like, why can't you just enjoy your older games? Like at the KZOO FGC, we actually still run plus R tournaments. We have Frodo and AG42, Frodo and Bilbo, and then AG42 that run weeklies online for that game. If we ever have enough for a demand, we run a tournament regardless of what game it is. So I don't understand, like, play the game you like. Why do you gotta shit on the games that we like because they're popular? Like, what is your logic? Let me know. I'm not trying to be too antagonistic about it. I know I sound very aggressive right now. It's just, It does personally irritate me a little bit when people say they're for the community, but then talk bad about games that people in the community do like. I'm not talking about the people who just say they don't like the game and they just don't play it. I mean the people who are actively trying to tear down the game, talk bad about the game. Every chance someone praises a game, they have to counter it with how bad the game is. Like those kinds of people. Why are you like that? Let me know in the comments section, because I need to understand that logic of why you contradict yourself. And I'd love to have a conversation about that. So people who know people like that or are people like that, please tell me. Help me understand a little bit. I don't want to be as judgmental, but it's like, why do you gotta rain on my parade? I'm not raining on your parade. I'm not saying your game is bad. Anyway, I digress. That's just been happening a lot with this game. It happened with Street Fighter V, and it's always bugged me. But nonetheless, let me move on from that. Let me get back to something more positive. So I do play a character called Naga Ryuki. I have never had a fighting game character that I have enjoyed as much as this character. Not just aesthetically, but gameplay wise. It's just perfect for me. If you haven't played the game or seen this character, he is a black samurai vampire. Like, he has this really cool samurai outfit on. It's very unique to him. He has either braids or dreadlocks in a ponytail. He has this really cool mask that has these fangs on it. And if you play him too dangerously, he goes into what's called a blood rage, and it's just, you don't want to be in that state. But it's very interesting because his mask comes off, he looks like he's very angry, his moveset changes a little bit or gets restricted, but he has ridiculous range of his weapons, and then also just ridiculous damage, but his health is draining. So it's incredibly dangerous. You don't want to go into that, but if you do go into it, you're not completely SOL, you can still win. It's just huge risk, huge reward. But anyways, I just love the way the character plays. From day one, from the beta, I just messed with him. I liked him. I know he changed from the beta, but people complained about that, but I didn't really know enough to bother complaining about it. So it didn't really affect me either way. I'm a pretty easygoing guy in general. I think most of you guys know that at this point, that I try actively to not let things bother me because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to let things bother me. So for me, I just, from the beginning, to get into more of the development of learning this game and how I got to Celestial Floor, as I talk about my experience, when I first started playing this game, I just tried to learn how the game felt. So my character has a dash, a command dash, so I can move really fast back and forth. He has restrictions. He doesn't have a normal dash. You can't press forward to do a run. You can do a back dash. He has a back dash. It's okay. It's not great. But he can't double jump, he can't air dash. His movement is very restricted. He still has a lot of mobility with his command dash and his movement of his normals and everything and his other specials. He has movement forward and some movement backward. And you can use that very, very well to your advantage. And that's what I tried to do. He has a grab that basically drains the blood of your opponent and heals his blood gauge, which is essentially how you go into blood rage if you don't manage that. Every time you do a certain kind of move, that blood gauge goes up. Once it pops, then that's when you go into your blood rage. Your health starts draining. It's not good. So you have to manage that, but you can cancel your specials into your specials. Basically, he can do some things that other characters can't do at the cost of using his own blood or whatever, or going up in the blood rage. I'm not exactly sure of the lore of why it works that way. Why when he spends his specials, I guess his blood rage goes up. Not necessarily he's draining blood. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I got to look it up. His lore seems interesting. I like playing the game more than I care about the lore or the story. Anyway, so I started practicing certain things. Something specific was, I need to learn how to command dash, and then as soon as I can, get my command grab out. That seemed like it'd be a very strong tool. So I would just sit there and I would command dash backwards, command dash forward, command grab. Like just back and forth until it just became second nature, because that's a very awkward movement because the command grab is it's a Z motion, the Dragon Punch, the VP motion. So it's not hard, it's just weird for me to do that input for a command grab. I've never played a character that had that sort of input. So I have to do quarter circle and then DP input into punch, right? So quarter circle forward kick, or 2-1-4 if you want to get technical, and then 6-2-3 or 2-3-6 for the kick if you want to get technical, and then 6-2-4 3 for the punch. And for those who don't play this game and don't know the notation, that probably doesn't make any sense, right? But for those who do, it makes some sense, hopefully. And it's just an awkward input that you have to get used to. So I would just sit there and have conversations with some friends while they're talking about the beta as well, maybe watching their screen, but just still getting this movement down. They didn't really see my screen or what I was doing, but I would just practice specific things that seemed like would be important to have in tense situations. And I just found those things, whatever it might be, and I'm still working on those. There's so many things that I'm discovering, and I just added to my arsenal. And when I played matches, all I did was try to pay attention to what the opponent was doing and put myself at an advantageous situation and respond to it. I play a lot of Street Fighter, so my hit confirms from playing Karin and my zoning from playing Fong is pretty good. I'm used to long range buttons, but I'm also used to being up close and like going into frame traps and then confirming into a button. Like, those are skills I had already developed, so I didn't have to think about hit confirms, because Street Fighter V's hit confirms are way harder than Strive's hit confirms in my opinion. The window of confirming is way wider. I think in terms of if we broke it down by frames of how much of a window you have, I'm pretty sure Street Fighter V would have a tighter frame window than Strive's. I've spent a long time looking at animations. My degree is in animation. I worked as a fighting game animator. So staring at animations is something that comes very, very natural to me. As such, I learned the skill of like hit confirming maybe simpler than others. I don't say that in a braggadocious way. It's just I notice other people are either scareder or less committed or just legitimately don't believe in their ability to confirm. But I didn't care if I could or couldn't do it. I just practiced doing it until I got it, right? I did the thing until I learned the thing, and I didn't really care if I could or couldn't do it. I was just like, okay, this seems unlikely, but let me just go ahead and, ask some people who can hit confirm, what the heck do they do? I looked at Geef's Gym, and I referred to Geef's Gym, and it's the same thing. So it's like, okay, well, clearly there's multiple people who learned how to hit confirm who couldn't hit confirm, so I did. Anyway. So all of that said, I learned some combos, I learned how to play the character, I started learning the Roman system, I made a couple of videos that are on YouTube, just going through the tutorial. So maybe you don't want to play the tutorial right now. You can actually go through my YouTube videos and you can find the ones that are just about the tutorial. And I'll put the links down there and find it for you to make it a little bit easier. I'll put it in the show notes for you. But yeah, it's pretty useful. I critique the tutorial during those videos, so I'm not going to go over it again. But I think there's some great things that they talk about and introduce, but I think there are some missed opportunities to expand on those at a later time or in that specific lesson. So it's not a terrible tutorial, it's not the best tutorial, but I highly recommend doing it because there might be a lot of nuanced situations you don't know anything about, or you may have a vague idea of how it works from other games but don't know the specifics, and that tutorial will help you a little bit. Sometimes they don't give you enough information, they sort of let you figure it out on your own, and that's not necessarily a bad way of teaching. It's just, there's also some specifics I think are worth teaching, and again, I get into all that. I'm not going to tangent that far on it, but take the tutorial. If you're really interested in improving in the game, if you're feeling like you're plateauing, start from the beginning. It's going to be a little bit painful, maybe, if you know a lot of this already, but I recommend doing it anyways, because again, there were some things I already knew about the game, but when the tutorial explained it, it was a lot better, and I understood it a lot clearer. And I appreciated that. And they have some exercises that help you learn how to do it that I do think are really, really good and help illustrate why these things are important. So make sure you do that if you're trying to get better at the game. I don't think it's necessary if you're just wanting to play the game and press buttons, but again, it is educational, so I'm going to recommend it. That said, Naga Ryuki isn't the only character I enjoy. I've been playing a little bit as Soul as well. I don't really lab him too much. I just watch what other people do because I commentate tournaments for Strive once a week in person. I get to watch some Soul players and see how they play the character and sort of pick that up. So I'll play sets with friends and I'll just play with the character and see how he works. And usually I can beat other people's secondaries and some of their mains with Soul. It's just a little sloppier because I don't know the intricacies of the character yet. There's other characters I do want to try, like Zato and Ino, who I think are way more technical and more intimidating to me personally, because the way they play doesn't click in my head, but also defending against them can sometimes be frustrating and very confusing, because I don't know how they work, and I feel like they're so obscure that I have to mess with them just to understand how to deal with them. That's just how ridiculous they are, so it's mainly a fascination. of how they work and how I could learn to make them work. Not necessarily something where I'm like, I want to compete with them or I want to like play a lot of games with them. I do want to play them. It's just I have Naga Ryuki. Like he's so cool. I don't need anybody else. It's nice to be able to air dash every now and then though. Again, Naga Ryuki's movement is very limiting, so it's nice to ground myself and understand how movement works for other characters and really get used to that. I played Dragon Ball and I played Marvel. I still play Marvel 3. So I do enjoy the variety of movement that other characters have, and I am used to learning multiple characters at this point, so I do want to encourage myself to keep doing that. Again, my time is limited, so it took me a while to get to 100 hours. I'm sure most of the people that I know are probably way higher in hours if I looked. I'm afraid to look at their like Steam accounts in the games, but I would guarantee a lot of these players that I'm playing with probably have way more time than I do. Even still though, one of the things that's been fascinating for me is just learning how to play the game efficiently. And I'm really proud of my progress in the game, because even though I have way less playtime, and I haven't traveled to tournaments like they've been doing, I'm able to keep up with a lot of them. And it feels really good because I'm playing a game that I legitimately enjoy, but I'm also being productive with the game. I think being good at the game can only help me. One, I love being a coach, so I would love to teach this game at some point when I get better. There is an opportunity for that because I did scoop a job recently, and I may need to actually help at the university for coaching that game. I don't know yet, but if there is that need, I already have the skills because I'm very knowledgeable, and that's another reason why I want to learn multiple characters. But even still, it's something I've been taking notes on and writing down and trying to dissect. How does one get good at a game more efficiently? Because I think there's a lot of people who get good at games, but who's to say they couldn't have gotten better faster, right? And I'm always obsessed with this. So outside of fighting games, I'm always watching and reading, watching videos and reading books on, and listening to audiobooks actually about, mind hacks, mental development, just how to improve, how to learn better, how to improve a skill, the practical applications of it, not just the mindset of it, but also the practical stuff of what are the specific things, the specific processes that I can do to improve. And putting that and applying that to this game feels good to see, because I'm confident that in my ability in the game, and I also feel like there's so much more for me to learn, and I'm excited to learn it, that I still am going to get better at this game as long as I just keep working on stuff. And it's fun to work on those things, so there's not really a conflict. There's no conflict of interest. I don't find labbing bored in this game. There's, watching the videos, watching them back, it's enjoyable to do for me. I don't think that's just because of Strive being good. I think that also just comes at a time where I've been working on myself in terms of where I want to be with fighting games. And at this point right now, I just want to enjoy and get better at fighting games, but I don't necessarily have the desire to compete. Like, I don't know how to put this. This is kind of complicated to explain and articulate, because I do want to inevitably compete again. So I have the intention of getting better with when it's time for me to compete again. I want to win tournaments. However, I think my time is not best dedicated to traveling just yet or competing just yet, but more so just getting consistent and comfortable with the game and knowing as much as I can about the game and improving as much as I can about the game. About the game? In the game. But again, it's an enjoyable process, and it comes at a good time for me because I have a new fighting game that I really enjoy. I don't want to say Street Fighter has gotten stale for me, it's just Street Fighter is a passion of mine that I'm not gonna quit. It's just nice to play another game that I'm more interested in competing in. I really want to master Street Fighter 5 because I think even still it's a challenging game, but playing this, and then when I go back to Street Fighter 5, I always find myself enjoying the process of playing the game and improving. I play Karin now, along with Fong, and it's just an enjoyable experience. I feel like my plateaus are gone. I don't care about any plateaus, and I had already really let go of a lot of issues with plateauing, so I had been improving, just not putting a lot of time into the game and feeling bad about not putting time into the game. And now I don't care that I'm not putting time into the game because I'm still working on my craft as a fighting game enthusiast. I just have a new game that I'm working on it with. But when I go back to Street Fighter V, because I do weeklies, because I see the game at least once a week, and I look up stuff and I'm curious and I do watch other tournaments from time to time, I'm not really atrophying in the game. I do need to go back and work on some skills, hone skills and learn new stuff. But I'm confident that I can, do that and put that time in. So at some point will get more consistent. At some point I will get more consistent with training in Street Fighter again. I like the new characters, by the way. I have no interest in Oro except for the zoning stuff. I just don't like the way that character looks. Akira looks cool, but I don't know if she looks cool enough for me to want to mess with her. And then Luke looks awesome. I just hope he has another skin. The only thing I care about is how he plays. He kind of reminds me of Steve Fox a little bit, but his hair looks ridiculous. I don't know what his deal is with that. I don't know what it is with Capcom and making hair that is just very sus, but they do it. They do. Their blonde character, they're blonde guys for some reason. I think other than Vega, who has more feminine hair. I don't know, man. He has curly fries and potato wedges and bananas. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. That's the aesthetic they chose, because Luke has some curly fry hair. I don't know. Anyway, the other topic that I wanted to discuss is this concept of getting in the zone. Getting into a point where you are able to only focus, only have your mental attention and your physical attention, your eyes, your ears, whatever, all your senses are allocated to playing to the best of your current ability. I had a conversation with some people and I never got a chance to follow up on it, so hopefully I will remember now that I'm talking about this to dig more into this conversation. But it did spark me to at least talk about it and share my thoughts and my experiences on it. I talk about the fact that I have ADD a lot. This is something I'm medically diagnosed with, not just something I'm saying, oh, I have ADHD, I'm pretty certain I looked it up and I have it. This is no. When I was 17, I went to a psychiatrist with my mom because I was just concerned about getting left back in high school. I didn't want to, I didn't get left back, but I didn't want to get left back either. And I was like, I don't like school. I can't pass these classes. Some of these are just hard. And inevitably, he was like, yeah, your attention span sucks, right? And I got medication. It didn't help, but it did motivate me to do better inevitably in school. But that's when I learned that, one, I stopped taking my medication, and two, as I got older, I learned how to discipline my mind to only focus on one thing. Until that point, I remember when I was meditating, this happened for the first time. I had never in my life experienced not having a thought happening in my head, let alone multiple thoughts. But I remember specifically, I don't remember how old I was, but I remember the location, the time area. I remember a lot about the experience of just sitting there. And then for a fraction of a second, I was like, whoa, I'm not thinking anything. And then because I thought I'm not thinking anything, it kind of cascaded all the thoughts back. And I was like, oh, okay, that was weird. And I remember I want to get that back. And it was harder the second time to get it because I was thinking about what it was like. And so I was too busy thinking about the experience rather than being in the experience. It's very, very, metaphorical and such. And there wasn't really any spiritual aspect to this. It was all just my awareness of how much I actually thought all the time. How often there were thoughts going on in my head. Whether it could be a song and some thoughts, a conversation, playing back scenarios in my head, thinking about what I'm actually doing, usually a video game or working out. And working out was the other times where I'm like, okay, when I started working out and meditating around the same time, it was back and forth, me just recognizing what being in the zone was like. And a lot of people have this wrong idea of being in a zone means you're playing better. It's not that you're playing better, you're playing at your potential at that time, because if you're doing something physical, you have the physical aspect of your muscles. Can your muscles and your bodies and your joints, can they physically do the ideas that you have in your head? In fighting games, that would be your execution. Have you honed those skills to be able to do the things that you have in your head, right? So that's pretty straightforward. But then you also have the mental aspect of it. And I would say the sense sensory aspect of it as well, where are your eyes paying attention to only what you need to be focusing on? Are your ears paying attention to what you only need to be focusing on? Now, sometimes you can dull one of these senses to focus better on the other. Like I tend to dull my ears by playing music, which allows me to basically ignore that sense and not hear any like external sounds, like someone saying something. Like it's very easy for me to hear a thought and then let that distract me. Now I can, with more effort, ignore that sense, but at that point, it's like if you can't hear the video game itself at all, why not just dull that sense? So it's more efficient for me to just play music most often, but I can, with effort, push people's thoughts out of my head, all that kind of stuff. It's just easier. Why not do that? So learning how to do all of that allows you to only take in information that's relevant to what you're doing. So you're not thinking about what if you mess up, what'll people think about you, what do your opponent think about you, if your opponent wins, and like you're not thinking about the future, the past. You're only paying attention to how to play this match to the best of your ability and utilize the skills that you've learned and trained, research, figured out. And as such, that mental focus is, I think, very hard for a lot of people to do, because at some level, I would say a lot of people, large majority of people, are distracted. Maybe not to the level of someone who has ADD, but to a degree to where they're not playing at their best. Now, you could say this is tilted, perhaps. It falls into the realm of what I would say is tilted, because you're not performing at your best. But this is kind of a constant state for most people, where they're not ever actually doing that. And it's hard to talk to this topic. It's hard to talk about this topic with people who may not have ever experienced being in the zone, because they don't know what it's like. And so it makes this conversation very, very one-sided, where you're trying to describe something that's going to be a different experience for them than it's going to be for you in some degree, because everyone processes information differently. And as such, it's hard to visualize a concept that's purely mental. It's hard to visualize a concept that's in your head and it's a state of being, where your mind is just still and you're reacting and you're planning for things that are going to happen in the game. It's like chess. Chess is a really great example because it's all mental. The pieces are just there to visualize the concepts and the moves and keep track of it. But everything that's happening is they're playing these scenarios in their head and they're trying to move the pieces to get to those scenarios. Master chess players already have these ideas in their head. They're just moving the pieces and manipulating their opponent to help them get to that point. Fighting games are very similar, but it's just 10,000 times faster than chess. And that's why a really, really great player is going to beat someone who's less experienced, because they're going to keep them in situations that are going to be advantageous for that player, that master. Whereas the player that's less experienced doesn't even recognize what's happening, doesn't even know they're being set up, doesn't know how to deal with these things, doesn't know how to get out of those traps. Very, very similar. As such, though, I've found that Strive is a game that's fun for me to keep in the zone. A lot of times I don't talk when I'm in my lobbies with my clan members, or whatever you call them, my FGC. I just sit there, and unless I'm streaming, I don't really talk. I just keep my eyes on everything. I try to look at all these things, and sometimes I'm planning, so I'm not as in the zone as I'm thinking about what I can do. So I'm not playing as well, but I'm thinking about, okay, how can I Roman cancel in this situation to become advantageous, or what can I do, what button can I throw out? And right now I've been thinking a lot about the Roman cancel system and how I can utilize that, not necessarily rely on it, but it's a resource I've been underutilizing, and I'm trying to rectify that issue by just pondering, how can I use my Roman cancel system in this situation, in that situation, so on and so forth. And I've been loving the findings. But my point is that I research all these things and these ideas, but then there's some times where I'm like, I just want to play in the zone. I just want to be hyper-focused on the game. And so I'm looking at all this information, and I'm I am theorizing in my head, but then I'm snapping back to reality, and I'm making sure I'm paying attention to right now. there's a lot of things that you can miss, a lot of punishes, or a lot of like being able to stuff an opponent if you're not paying attention to like everything that's happening on screen. And I think I was intimidated by that for a long time. However, at least with me, it's fun for me to look all around for all this information now that I know what's actually happening. And I find myself, I call it getting into the matrix. I'm jacking into the matrix because I can see all these possibilities of what's going to happen, and I can make my character do these things, and it's way less explainable and more just immediate response to what I have going on in my head. And that place of mental state is the funnest thing for me, even if I lose, because I feel like when I'm in that state, I appreciate my opponent and what they're doing. And if I'm in a state of appreciation of what my opponent is doing, they're probably beating me. And if they're beating me, that means I'm taking in that information and trying to decipher it. There's something there that they did that I can learn from. And this is always true in every fighting game. It's just this game is fun for me to do it for whatever reason. At least it is now. I'm open to that not being the case later on down the line, but it is now, and I'm getting good at the game, so it's a win-win. But yeah, being in that state allows me to not get tilted as much, because when I'm losing, I don't care about the winning. I just want to play at my best capacity. So I'm not playing in the zone to win. I'm playing in the zone to play better. So it allows me to push out any irrelevant information, focus only on the match, and even when I'm winning or I'm losing, I'm trying stuff out and trying to solidify skills, because there's so many skills that I don't yet have that all I have to do is just keep doing them. So sometimes it's just a matter of, I forgot to do this thing, remember to do it next time. 20 games later, I forgot to do this thing again 20 times in a row. Let me do it. Let me try to remember it in this next match. And that's literally, I went like 50 matches before I actually finally did the thing. And when I did, I was like, yes, yeah, like I finally did it, And I had been working on it, and like part of learning a new skill is reminding yourself to do that thing. It could be playing music, and maybe there's a certain technique that you remember to learn to make it easier or more efficient or more practical, whatever it may be. But you got to remember to do it. It's really easy to get distracted by winning when you're trying to learn something new. And if you're afraid of losing because of this new thing you're learning and messing it up, then you really shortchange yourself, because you're not actually improving, you're just trying to win. And some people that's not going to click with you. If it does click with you, good. That means you probably are in a state where you're trying to get better, and you care more about improving than you care about winning. But if you don't get it, I would say think about it a little bit more, and ask me a question if you disagree, if you strongly disagree. Again, I'm all about conversation. So I welcome you talking to me, disagreeing with me, and we can talk this out. So, all that to say, I thoroughly enjoyed this game. I'm excited for the future of this game. One new character just came out recently. He's ridiculous. I don't think I'll play him competitively or anything like that, but he's fun to play. A lot of characters enjoy him. I recommend playing this game. It's pretty newbie friendly. The ranking system is also very newbie friendly. I didn't talk a lot about that. I think I talked about that in my last Shrive podcast episode, so you can check that one out. But yeah, it's definitely newbie friendly. I play on PC. It's supposed to be cross-platform at some point in the fall, I believe. So hopefully that happens. If you want sets with me, I play with everybody. I don't know if this is a thing, but there's a lot of people who want to play me that are intimidated to play me. Like, not just in this game, but in Street Fighter. And if you're one of those people, just reach out to me. If I can't do it, I legitimately can't play right now, I just will let you know. And I'm down to reschedule. I'm trying to get a pretty consistent schedule so I know when I can do stuff. So let me know, and I'll say a time, or you can just hit me up at a later date. Like, hit me up. Don't be shy. I used to be an incredibly shy person before the existence of social media, so I developed not being shy before that time. So being shy online isn't really something that I'm accustomed to personally. I've always had an alter ego, so I always was very confident when I'm utilizing my alter ego as well. So I played online games, but they didn't know who I was, so I could just be me and not I could be whatever. Anyways, I say reach out to me. We'll play some sets. I play on PC. I play Naga Ryuki. Right now, I'm on floor 10 because I haven't done my trials for the celestial floor. I'll get to that at some point. Maybe as of uploading this, it might be up. But for now, yeah, I would love to know what you guys think. I appreciate you hanging out with me. I like talking about this game. I like commentating, and I like playing this game and playing long sets. I like playing long sets specifically. The game looks cool, sounds cool. Yeah, I think it's really awesome. So I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you guys so much. I'm trying to figure out my content right now. I have a side project that I just launched. It's a project right now called Where's the Line, but it's more about like social and political stuff. It's a little bit harder topics to talk about on my main channel, so that's something that we're just doing as an experiment, a friend and I. I'll put a link to that. I'll put a link to the website for you guys to check out if you want to. There's only 2 episodes up right now. We're gonna upload another one here soon. But it's just talking about topics just at random. Lately it's been more social, at least the ones we've uploaded, but we've recorded several that we may or may not upload. We're just, it's a project. We're figuring things out as we go. So that said, I've ranted on enough. Thank you guys so much for the support, for hanging out with me, for being patient with me, for the Patreons, all of you guys. Thank you. And I'll see you in the next one.